Alright. I have started up all of the platforms tonight. We even have Odyssey on board. I am checking the audio I have started. Odyssey sounds good. YouTube is kicking in. Now. See, sound audio on YouTube sounds good. Alright, now I've got to well, first I gotta post start. See, sound audio on X sounds good. I've got to and I've got Rumble going right now, so I gotta hit refresh. I always have to do that with Rumble. I don't know why, it drives me nuts. Now, so audio sounds good on Rumble. Twitch is up. It drives me nuts. Now, and Twitch is up. So we are good on Odyssey, YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, as well as Rumble and Twitch. I also posted a link on minds.com, and I will be streaming on there as well, but it'll be indirectly through Rumble, so if you guys want to check that out, you can. I still have 15-16 minutes before I'm going to start the stream. I just wanted to come on here, test the audio, and make sure everything's running properly. I did get X finally going, figured it out. I used the freaking spaces on X for the last 2 streams, and I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm not going to do that anymore. It was an utter disaster. So what I'm going to do, since I've figured out how to actually stream on X, I'm going to just go ahead and stream. And if you guys have any kind of responses that you want to give me, just send a comment through the actual live stream, and I'll see if I can actually see it and respond to it. Like I said, I've got 15 more minutes for the stream, and I do have X Premium, by the way, guys. So if you do send me a message, I will get the message through, because they've got those. I don't know if you guys remember it or not, but they had Dex at one point. Well, they've added that back to the premium accounts, and that's basically all I need to say, really. I'm going to take advantage of these 14 minutes and go get me some coffee and smoke a cigarette. I am also going to stop myself from hyperventilating. No, I'm just joking. We are actually going to have a format tonight. I did some I created some PowerPoints that I can bring up in this episode, so we can actually talk about it. Now, the link is only on Minds. It's not the actual video, so you guys can still click on the link and go to Rumble to see that, because I know how you guys are about Rumble over there on Minds.com, and but we are on different platforms too, so I hope you enjoy, and I will be right back. Let me mute this out so you don't hear weird noises while I'm gone. Okay, so we have 4 minutes to go, which is great. And I will be ready here in a minute. Now, Do Better is talking to me at the moment too, so if I seem distracted, it's because I'm trying to have a conversation with him on Minds Chat, so be patient with me. He has an idea for me, so I'm gonna. He said to hit him up when I have the chance. I'll do that, but right now I'm gonna send him a message and say, all right, but I'm getting ready to start a live stream. Afterwards, I'll talk to him, and that'll be kind of a little bit about what we're talking about. I don't want this to all just be about politics or one certain topic, so I'm going to bring up a lot of things that I'm doing right now when it comes to my streaming and stuff. So it's going to be a variety of things, and I feel comfortable with that. So before we get started, what I'm going to end up doing is doing comfortable with that. I'm going to end up doing my countdowns, get started, and recording this too. So later on after I do live stream, I'm going to edit this, and then I'm also going to later on put it up as a live stream. So before I start talking and getting into all the good stuff, I'm just going to run my mouth now for another 2 minutes, and we'll get the show started. So I'll basically do my intro tonight. What I'm doing it like the other two before this. I'm gonna do it on my own. So there won't be any guests or anything of that nature. I want to be able to do a stream that's me, you know what I mean? It's not everybody else. And I'll get into that whenever I start up, so just be patient with me. I got 1 more minute left. Should probably get some more coffee, though, because you know how I feel about coffee. I am on Odyssey, YouTube, X, live stream, and Twitch, so if you guys want to leave a comment in the comment section, go for it. I can actually read it now because I'm doing a slideshow, and that'll be helpful to where it's not bouncing around. I hate whenever it bounces around all the different platforms while I'm streaming, because to me that's unprofessional. I just don't like it. But everybody's got to have their pretty faces posted up there on YouTube and Odyssey and Rumble. So it's 10 o'clock now. I am going to do my countdown and start the show. So with that, 3, 2, 1, now. Hello everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Live with Roger Hanson. This is again late at night for me. It's 10 p.m. at night, and I hope that it's not causing that much of a disturbance to you guys. I know that I have different people from different parts of the world who come onto my show. I don't know if those people in those parts of the world are actually watching my show, but at least I know that they are coming onto my show. Now, tonight is a special it's a special episode. There's no way of avoiding it. This is about the assassination. This is going to have the topic of the assassination attempt concerning Donald Trump. We will be discussing that. It's very important. Now, if you've watched any of my shows, you know how I feel about the political atmosphere that's going around all over the world concerning politics, and I don't really agree with it too much. I don't agree with the politics that are involved. I don't agree with the bickering and the arguing and the infighting and the hate and criticizing this person to make this person look better and vice versa. I'm more of a I'm more of a historical politics kind of guy. I take a look at politics according to history and the current events that are taking place today, and I try to keep things as rational as I possibly can. I don't feed into a lot of the crap that's being fed to us, and that's basically how I feel when it comes to politics. I've already said it in a previous episode too that whenever I started doing all of this streaming, I really was hesitant about getting into politics because of the kind of stuff that's been happening. And after a little bit of convincing, I did finally do it. And with that said, I'm going to make a couple of announcements. Now, I'm going to be doing live with Roger Hanson, this show right here, but this is the final week for 2 of my episodes, for the season, which will end, and that is Tech Talk on Wednesdays and Roger's Real Time Talk Show, which is on Thursdays. Those are the final episodes until January. Hopefully, if I don't make Tan Hai Tran and Mark Edworthy mad at me, we'll be back on in January, but there's no guarantees to that because I have a tendency of riling those two up. They get mad at me. So, with that being said, I'll repeat what I just said. Those are going to be the final episodes for the year. And we will continue that in January. And the reason why I do that is because I don't want anybody to get burnt out. You know what I mean? You go through certain stages when you do this stuff because a lot of people aren't used to routines. They're not used to schedules, coming up with topics and things of that nature. I've become repetitious in my habits when it comes to live streaming, so I do a lot of stuff that most average streamers don't do. Like, I've got content going out all day, every day, and a lot of people don't understand that. I've had people actually think that I was a bot on platforms, and I had to communicate with them so that they understood that no, I'm not a bot. I'm just really, really bored, so with that, I just wanted to make those announcements. I also am wanting to say that we are in the process of putting something together with Rapid Glitch from Nostalgia Retro Gaming, and I was able to finally introduce him to Minds Gaming on Minds.com, Minds Underground, and nothing's written in stone yet, but there's a good chance we're going to be able to maybe get into creating a board game that's on the internet. Like I said, it's all just being talked about. I was able to introduce the two of them together. Rapid went on Mint Me, the same place where I have my WoW coin, and he created his own Mint Me coin called Retro Coin, which is going to be a part of the game. So that is pretty good. We've got that started up, and now I've taken the templates and I've downloaded them from Rapid and transferred them over to Minds Gaming, and we're kind of working that out so that we can get that going and on board. I just got a notification from Bob Dub 2 about what's going on with Do Better, and he is interested in putting a game together as well. So just so Do Better knows, I am interested in talking to you if you want to get that going and maybe come up with some ideas. We can collaborate on that and maybe get you to where you and Rapid Glitch and maybe even Minds Gaming, all of us get together and come up with some concepts and some ideas with what you want to do. I think that's a great idea because I do enjoy the streaming, don't get me wrong, but I also find that it's time consuming and it takes me away from things that I really want to do. I'm one of those guys who really do want to get into computer graphics. I want to get into creating games and coding. I don't like coding, don't get me wrong, but I know that I have to learn it in order to do more things, you know. So that is one of the things, those are the things that I want to do, but a lot of the time I'm stuck on the internet editing videos and live streaming, and that gets tedious after a certain amount of time. So that is a direction that I do want to take. So if you are serious about that and you want to do it, hook up with me and we can talk about it. Now, I'd like to let everybody know that I am on Odyssey. I'm on YouTube, X, formerly Twitter, and Rumble, as well as Twitch. I'm live streaming on those platforms right now. Now, I also, I don't know how it's happening, but I do have an account on BitChute, and at the moment somehow BitChute is magically uploading my content, even though I never said for them to do that. They are able to do it, and I'm not complaining about it. So at least they're putting my or my stuff up. So if you want to check me out on BitChute, you can. I've got that going. Now, with that, I also want to say, well, I mentioned MintMe. We are advertising the MintMe WoW token that I've got. Now, I'm doing that through Minds Gaming, and Minds Gaming is working with me on my MintMe coin. Not only am I doing it, but so is Within the Vacuum and Bob Dub on Minds.com, and there's a few others. I believe Do Better even has a coin too. Auto Excelsior has one, and we're all collaborating together. So for all you people on X, don't think I'm like trying to spam you with some kind of scam or anything. Now, the reason why I started doing MintMe, if you go on to that website and you read what the coin is about, is it'll explain this, but the reason why I started doing that is because I want to honestly come up with a monetization program for content creators where they can monetize themselves and they can use my coin to do it, and be able to, share your content with one another and earn from it without having to go through platforms like YouTube or Rumble or DLive or Twitch or any of these other ones, so that's what that's all about. That's what my coin's all about. Now, Within the Vacuum, he's got a coin set up, and he's into music. He has a lot of things that he's wanting to do and a lot of projects. Now, that's where a coin can come in handy as well. Bob Dub has the Doubloon, and Minds Gaming, he's got a whole bunch of stuff. Him and Satori D. I need to remember to mention Satori D too, because he's a big he's big on this whole thing too. He's one of the important guys. You know what I mean? So that's what MintMe is all about. And whenever I post my stuff up on X, This stuff isn't like trying to coerce you into anything. All I'm doing is posting it up there so that you can go to the link and click on the video and see what other videos are available to where you can go watch it. They're on Rumble and they're also on YouTube, but they go through MintMe. Now, if you want to go in there and you want to be a part of this, then you can go in and uh, you can buy my coins. You can create your own coin. You can do whatever you want. I'd be more than happy to help support you. Just let's network together on there and let me know that you're doing it and stuff of that nature. So that is two things that I've got going on right there, and I'm trying to get through all this so that I can get on to the politics later on. But like I said, I want my streams to be more than just about politics or any of that, So besides that, I do have some projects that are coming up with Nostalgia Gaming Retro and Team Retro. Right now, I'm finishing up on Elder Scrolls Arena for the year. I'm gonna come back and finish it up next year, but I'm finishing that up, and I am currently in the process of creating a Christmas calendar where we will be going through a maze, and you have to get through the maze, and in order to get through the maze you have to do certain challenges that involve retro games. So they're basically gaming challenges, and you have to go through and do those challenges. And this is going to be set up with YouTube, because they're the ones who have the end screens. And what you do is you start out at the beginning, you come to a spot, and the end screens will pop up. It'll say go left, go right, or go straight. When you choose to go left, you'll have another video that pops up where it shows you going left, and then it takes you to another spot. Now, there could be a challenge there, or it could give you another option to go left, go right, or straight. And that's what this is basically about until you get to the end of the maze. Now, all of the videos except for the first one are going to be private. The first one is public, and you click on that and it takes you in and it starts you out, and then you go in to the other videos, which are not private but unlisted, so that not everybody can jump ahead and find out how to get through it. That's what I'm doing for Christmas with Nostalgia Gaming Retro. Besides that, we are also working on another Nuzlocke. It's going to be with Pokemon Gen 2 Gold versus Silver. For all you gamers, if you're interested in that, just be aware that we're in the process of putting that together. And not only is it a team effort, but the game is also a randomizer, so everything's mixed up. We're not going to get what you usually get when you play the regular game. So that's going on with him. Also, I'd like to say that starting next year at some point, me and Rapid and Zach, Disney Magic Zach, have come together and decided that we are going to do some projects that involve live streaming. Rapid's wanting to do some live stream gaming where we all play games together, and they don't have to be retro games either, up-to-date games, and we'll be doing that as well on his new channel. I'm going to be doing interviews with people pertaining to the gaming world. We have one that's possibly set up to go, and I'd like to put it out there that if anybody who's into gaming and wishes to be interviewed or be on the show, they are more than welcome to contact me or contact Rapid Glitch at Nostalgia Gaming Retro on Discord to get that going, and we can set you up with a time and have you ready for that event ahead of time. Now, with that being said, I'd also like to say that I have officially stopped with my insane amount of video games being archived and uploaded on YouTube. They're no longer 6 videos a day, they're just one a day. And what I've done is I started live streaming again. Um, at the moment. I'm doing 3 games, 10 videos per game, and kind of doing it in a roulette fashion, where 10 of this game, 10 of the next one, 10 of the next one, and then go back to the first one. So right now I am doing Assassin's Creed Unity. Then after that, I'm also doing Doom, and I'm also after that doing For Honor, which is a game that I had wanted to play for the longest time, but never had a chance to until here recently. So that's what I'm doing in the gaming world. I might go in and find out what sort of stuff that I need to be learning about when it comes to the gaming industry, and get things set up ahead of time for that. I was doing it last year with Karma Love, and I haven't been keeping up on it like I should be doing. So I do have to tell you though, if you guys are into Xbox 360 and you want to get a copy of the games that are being sold on the internet from the company, you need to do it now. It's the 15th here in Illinois Central Standard Time, and by the 29th, which is my birthday by the way, they will no longer be selling any more games on the internet or in stores of Xbox 360, so you might want to get them now. Now, if you want to use an emulator, I'm sure you can go in and use an emulator, but it's like I've said in previous videos, I was disappointed with using emulators while playing on some of these games. I think that I actually ruined my first time gameplay experience because I used an emulator. They aren't really all that reliable when it comes to Xbox 360. The settings aren't really all that great. You can't adjust things like you can with other emulators. So just a thought, maybe if you have the console or whatever, and you're wanting to get certain games, you need to go and get those games because it's coming to an end. I may have said that before, but I am not sure. I have a habit of repeating myself, so let me go in here and see if there's anybody who actually cares about what my big mouth is saying. No, nobody yet. Now, I do want to say thank you to RT Zumi for liking my post on X. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And on live, I'd like to thank the 2 people who are actually watching my stream. Like I said to you guys, if you want to make comments, feel free to make them in the chat. I can see them. It's not like when I'm playing the video games and I got full screen or doing all this crazy shit with the freaking pretty faces. You know what I mean? I said that beforehand. It's like I like these slideshows because they are helping me to where I can navigate a little bit better. Now, I also want to mention about these slideshows as well. I'd like to put a word of thanks out there to Satori D, Bob Dub, and Minds Gaming for helping me out with a lot of the slideshow AI pics that they supplied to me. I'd also like to thank Mr. Robot on Minds.com who helped me with his AI photos. I did do some of these, like the ones that are going right now. Those I did myself with the whole alien underground cool shit, you know what I mean? Because that's where all the cool stuff is. If if you know anything about this stuff. I have those from my channel on the Wonderful World of Weirdness, as well as strange stories. If you guys want to go in and check out some of the stuff that I've been putting out, you're more than welcome to go there and check that out. I do my gaming, which the gaming community knows about. I go by Infamous OG 1973 on Twitter. Or Twitch. I found out that I'm actually under Infamous 1969, which is cool, I guess, but that's not the original name. So it's Infamous. It's gaming with Infamous. That's what I go by. So I'm not gonna blow it all out of proportion like I usually do. And you can check me out on YouTube, Odyssey, X, Rumble, and Twitch. Now I have been also been playing around on Skype, so if you guys want to contact me on Skype, you can contact me on Skype with Live with Roger Hanson, and we can go from there. I have different shows that I am doing right now. The only one that is scheduled, or the only two that is scheduled that I've been doing, is Live with Roger Hanson and Wow Talk. Now Wow Talk is pretty cool. That's a collection of interviews and shows that I've put together, which involve people like Bob Dub, Summer Todd, Austin Todd, Old John, Karma Love, myself. I even have Jaffe Ryder on there every once in a while. I've got Mr. Robot. I have interviews from people who discuss everything from aliens to ghosts to spirituality, all the way to philosophy. We have Vince and Julian, who do a live stream with Bob Dub, which is pretty cool. If you guys ever want to check that out, you can. I believe they're on Rumble, and it's a pretty good show. I've had them on my Into the Abyss series, where we discussed philosophy, things of that nature. So it's a lot of stuff going on there, and that's what Wonderful World of Weirdness is about. I've started doing just archived uploads at the moment until maybe the end of the year, because I want to be able to focus more on different topics and different areas that I'm going into. But right now, me and Austin and Summer are working on campfire stories. I'm doing Wow Talk, like I said before. I'm also doing Ancient Mysteries. That's a big one. I'm doing Strange Stories, which I also have a channel named Strange Stories, but I'm doing those on WoW, as well as doing another episode concerning conspiracy. So there's a lot of things going on the Wonderful World of Weirdness. Now, like I said, I am bringing to an end Roger's Real Time Talk Show this week, as well as Tech Talk. But there are copies of it that are available for you on Odyssey, YouTube, X, and Rumble, as well as on Minds. Now, Mark Edworthy and Tanhai Tran have been working with me on being active in the groups on Minds.com. So what they've done is they've set up 2 groups, one for Tech Talk, as well as one for the wonderful, or not, for, what is it? No, it's for Minds Roundtable Weekend Event. Now that's another one that I've had, which is all based on Minds.com. In those 2 channels, you can go in there and you can check out a lot of the older ones. I've got videos that are scheduled to come out that aren't out yet, but you can check them out as they come out. And this is 2 seasons worth of it. Now, Roger's real time talk show event isn't hooked up with a group at the moment, but I do have groups on there if you want to check it out. So, man, I can't believe that I've actually had to go and talk that long on just advertising the stuff that I've been going through and things of that nature. This is the kind of stuff that I go through, and I've been going through when it comes to making my videos and networking. Networking isn't just about hanging out with everybody and talking, you know. I've had to go into these platforms and set up groups and pages and hang out with people and get them on my show and stuff of that nature. So it's a really interesting world that I've been involved in when it comes to that. Now, I do want to also mention that I am on Skype, like I said, but I'm also on Discord. If you guys want to check me out on Discord, you can find me there. I go by Infamous OG1973 or Infamous. I also go by Roger Hanson, and the Wonderful World of Weirdness is on Discord as well. I network with gaming through Nostalgic Gaming Retro, as well as Home Away from YouTube, and my own personal Discord, which is Gaming with Infamous. So you can find me there, and Gaming with Infamous is on Discord as well. So now that I've given you my entire resume and I've gone through the video games and things of that nature, I would also like to mention that there are some things too that I think I want to discuss concerning technology and the things going on in that world, especially with AI, you know, because here lately I've been noticing this insane growth of people who are just engrossed with AI, you know, and it's not just people, it's corporations and it's the education system and stuff. I have a nephew named Cody Mize, who I'm very proud of. He's a smart student. He next year, as a matter of fact, he's going to be taking his calculus exam, which, if nobody knows about calculus, it's something that you should really be proud of. I mean, the fact that you're even able to go in and take the test is a huge thing. And next year he's going to be set up with taking that test. Now, before that happened, some weird stuff has been going on with him too. Like, now he's planning on going over to France for holiday whenever school's out, which I think's cool, as long as he doesn't, you know, start kissing on those French girls. I've warned him about that. I was like, if one of those French girls come up and start kissing on you, you put your fist in the air and you scream science in their face. You say science, and if they don't listen the first time, you do it again, and eventually they'll walk away and leave you alone. And I'm told him that because he needs to further his education. Don't worry about those pretty girls. They'll come later, you know. They'll come later. But he's planning on going to France. I think that's pretty cool. And it's okay, you know, to say good things about your nephew, especially when you know he's doing good for himself and he's worried about his education and doing great things. I don't want to be prideful. I've already had this conversation with Bob Dove about my thoughts on pride. So with that, I'm not going to say that I'm like proud of him or anything like that, but he does make me feel good that he's actually putting effort into what he's doing, you know, and he's actually thinking about his future. Now, After France, he, well, actually, this has actually already happened. He got a notice from his school and through the mail to that he had an offer to go to Kentucky to learn about AI. So he went down to Kentucky and he took this like week or two course on what AI was and everything like that. So he goes down there and he learns about it. And after he learns about it, he comes back home and he tells us that not only did he go down there for that course, but they told him if he comes back in August and continues with the courses, then he'll be able to get a Pell Grant. Not a scholarship, but a Pell Grant to college to uh, basically get an education for free. So, I mean, I was pretty impressed with that. But at the same time, it got to me to thinking, man, this this AI thing is a big deal, Me and Mark Edworthy on Tech Talk seem to always have a issue when it comes to the topic of AI because he doesn't think that it's a big deal, But I'm starting to see that it actually is a big deal, and there's a lot of things that need to be taken into consideration when it comes to that. So that is one thing that I noticed. That let me see. I think I've got a message. I'm not sure. Now, no, it's just a notification, same one I read before. But yeah, that's something that stuck out to me, and I don't know if anybody else has had that experience when it comes to their kids here in the United States or even abroad. If you guys have any stories that relate to that and you'd like to share them with me, feel free to send me a message, and I'd love to read it if you guys just want to write it, or if you want to come on and talk to me about it at a later time, feel free to contact me and we can talk about it. And especially when it comes to the kids going to college for this stuff, because that just blew me out of the water. That was pretty intense. So at the moment I have no messages in chat, which is fine by me. That means I don't have to answer nobody's questions. I don't really know what to say about that other than yay. So, that's like 30 minutes of conversation that I came up with, and I think I'm pretty much wiped out on that. So, now I think it's time, after discussing all that, to get to the conversation about Donald Trump's assassination attempt. Now, I don't get me wrong, okay? I believe that this is a very, very serious situation. But I do want to say this, okay? The shooter was not a professional, and I don't believe that it was that the attempt was actually planned by any organization. I don't think that it was planned by any freaking political party or group. I think that I don't think that the shooting was staged either. I don't believe that. I don't believe that Donald Trump would actually be dumb enough to freaking stage a situation where a guy had a freaking gun and he was willing to allow that guy to shoot and hit his ear. You know what I mean? That's kind of like the carny with the knives. You know what I mean? How many people could actually allow for a carny to freaking throw knives at you while they twirl you around? I don't think that Donald Trump would do that. So I don't think that it was staged, and there were people who were actually killed in that situation. So, in my opinion, I don't think he would do that either. You would have to be really cold-blooded to do it. And now, with that being said, I also want to say that I do associate with a lot of people who who talk a lot of conspiracy, and there are a lot of people that I actually have conversations with who would disagree with me and say that, oh yeah, the CIA would be definitely willing to kill humans to cause an uproar, a civil war, whatever it is, and you know, don't get me wrong with that. I think that there are things that have occurred in history that relate to those kind of situations, but what I'm saying right now is I don't think that this attempt is one of those, because first of all, Donald Trump and everybody who watched that, and well, anybody in the United States, period, we're lucky that the guy wasn't a professional, because that's all we need is an assassination. We've had some serious issues happen in the past because of it. There was the assassination attempt, or there was the assassination of Abraham Lincoln, JFK, and the attempt on Ronald Reagan back in the 80s, and none of that helped our country whatsoever. So we were lucky that this guy was not a professional and wasn't able to actually finish the job, wasn't able to kill Donald Trump, because I just don't think that at this stage it would be a good thing for the United States if that happened. I do believe that it was a lone gunman. I believe that he, I don't know. I'm not going to say it, but for me personally, a person who did that would have to have mental issues. But then again, I remember the Reno, or was it the Reno or Las Vegas shootings? They said that the guy who did that, they found no evidence of him having any kind of mental disability. He was actually straight in the head, and everything, like there was nothing out of the ordinary about his behavior. So I could be wrong about having a mental problem too, but one thing that I do want to mention is the poor security. I do have to say that there was poor security that was there at the scene. I've seen some video footage. I actually seen the one with the guy talking to the reporter, and he said that while the guy was climbing up the building and crawling across the roof, he was yelling to a police officer saying, "There's a guy with a gun crawling up to the roof and scaling the roof with a gun." And the police were all just looking at him like he was stupid, and he also said that he could see the Secret Service agent up on the barn, and he was pointing towards the gunman, and the Secret Service agent was actually looking at him and still didn't do nothing. This was like within a 3-minute time period before the actual shooting happened. I think that goes to show the poor security that was taking place at this rally. And this goes back to the atmosphere and the climate that has developed over the last 3 elections, where these people have completely no regard for security when it comes to people who are within this political party or within this political election, at all. They just, if you're not a part of the party that's in office, then they just don't care about you, and I think that is a shame. Now I was on Jaffe's show the night before this, and we were mentioning the fact about RFK, and when it comes to this security, everybody's now talking about the poor security at Donald Trump's rally, and it's not just at his rally, okay? Now, I don't know 100% if this is true. I can check it out later, but I've been told that RFK has requested Secret Service for 5 times at least, and he's been turned down by the White House. Now, that is a shame too in my book, because even though he's not a part of the Republican Party or the Democratic Party, he is running for president. That alone should allow him the privilege of having security watch over him. Not only that, but you got to understand that this man is a descendant of the President of the United States, as well as a freaking senator of the United States. Now, even though a president leaves office, I'm pretty sure that they should also be allowed the security that comes with Secret Service. You know, and for them and their families. So that right there should have also made him eligible to have Secret Service as security for when he's running for president, at least, you know. I think that is another thing that we need to look at. And I also have issues with this whole thing about political parties controlling the elections. You know, I don't think that political parties should have complete and absolute control over the process, because, like, for me, I've mentioned it when I talk about political history, that I don't feel, or I don't feel as if that's right, because if you take a look at, like, George Washington, okay, when George Washington was president, he refused to be a part of a political party, and I believe that he felt that way because he knew, like, I believe that political parties were eventually going to be the downfall to this country. And if you look at the things that are taking place today and you look at what's going on, you'll see that I'm not too far off from the truth when it comes to that. The division that's going on in this country is insane. Now, I think that the real big problem when it comes to what's taking place in this world has to do with our thinking and how we are wanting to do things. Like, I've got friends who are also saying that we need to just get rid of the old system and start fresh, start from new, you know. I don't believe that is the complete truth. I think that there are things that have worked that can be used again. I don't believe that we need to start from fresh. But on the other hand, we do need to change. And the one thing that's most important that needs to be changing is our thinking and how we deal with things, and what's important and what's not important. Okay. Now, with this whole thing that's going on today, and with Donald Trump and this assassination attempt, you have to take into consideration these two factors. Okay. We have a president that appears to be senile. All right. And that did affect a lot of people when they saw that, not just Republicans, not just Democrats, but everybody. I mean, when they saw the way he was in that debate, that affected a lot of people. And it was so bad and so horrible that I don't even think Donald Trump wanted to be there, to be honest with you. You know what I mean? That was how bad that looked. So when it comes to this, you need to think we have a president that is pretty much going senile, if that's the case. And then on the other side, we have the former president and now nominee who was almost assassinated. Okay, now you've got this kind of turmoil going on, and you have to ask yourself, you know, what's going on with this security, you know, at the rally. And then RFK, Okay, he's been denied secret security guards for several times now. Um, a lot of this stuff, in my opinion, to go back. We need to look at things for what they really are and not the way that we perceive them to be, because um, a lot of people who are running around right now and calling themselves conservatives really don't understand what a conservative is. Okay, now that's something that I wanted to get into and maybe discuss, because I think that we need to understand what traditional conservatism is, and we also need to kind of go over liberalism. And when I say liberalism, I'm talking about classical liberalism, stuff that pertains to John Locke and things of that nature. Um, I I've been doing some pretty cool stuff here with Mark Edworthy, Bob Dub, Otto Excelsior, Julian, and even Mr. Robot. When it comes to politics, we've been discussing this stuff. Um, Now, besides talking about liberalism, I want to kind of get into radicalism too, because that's something new that I discussed. I've been researching and finding out, which is something that I completely overlooked when it came to politics and historical politics, especially. So these are some of the things that I really want to take a look at, because I think what's going on today has a lot more to do with what's already happened than what most people believe that is the truth. Basically, I don't think too many people understand what's going on. To be honest, it's and like I said, before, I've said it many times. The craziness is everywhere. Okay, it's not just here in the United States. It's everywhere. And with my research and what I've been doing, the things that are taking place politically don't just pertain to the United States. It pertains to Canada. It pertains to all the colonies of the United Kingdom. It pertains to Britain, England, all of it. That's what I really get into and research and find out about. So um, with that, I think I'm going to let my cat out first, and then I'll come back and I'm going to kind of go over some of this stuff with. I'll start out with traditional conservatism and go from there. So give me a moment while I get up and go do this, and I will be back. Okay, I am back, and now I am getting uh, ready to get into this whole thing about traditional conservatism. Now, first thing I want to mention when it comes to traditional conservatism is originally the conservatives they had strong monarchy tendencies, right? And the United States Revolution was fought against these conservatists. Okay, so a lot of Americans today who believe that they are conservatives need to take into consideration that the same people that they are supporting today are the same people that this country fought against during the Revolutionary War. All right, we were not founded on the ideas of conservatists. Conservatists are the ones who were oppressing us and were tyrannical, and we are the ones who revolted against that. Who revolted against that. And when I refer to the monarchy, what I'm talking about is England and the Tories. Now, traditional conservatism had a tendency to go against radical reform. They really despise radicals, and radicals are the people that I was talking about that I overlooked the last time whenever I went and was doing my research before. Like, I knew about traditional conservatism, I knew about classical liberalism, and things just didn't match up. There were things that were kind of off, you know what I mean? Even up until here recently, before we were doing Roger's real-time talk show, things just didn't match up. And then last year, me and Mark Edworthy did the United States, and we covered the Constitution, and we covered the government and the branches of government and all of that, statutory laws and things. If you want to check that out, you can. It's on Roger's Real Time Talk Show. It's season 1 basically, but that has all that information in it. But it still wasn't enough to answer some of the questions, why things were the way they were and why things were really weird when it comes to that whole period leading up to now. And then here recently, I accidentally ran into the word radical, and I actually found out that the radical movement actually was a movement. It was a group of people who called themselves radicals. There was radicalism, and that wasn't the same as classical liberalism. They had close resemblances, but they weren't the same. Now, the traditional conservatists, they had a tendency to despise radical reform. Now, they also practiced, the conservatives, they also practiced what was called interventionism, and they were real big about strong armed forces. And that was actually their hallmark for the Tory party in the UK. So having a strong armed force and interventionism was two big things for them. They believed that they had to intervene with things that were going on in the world. And with America, here in the United States, all the way up until the turn of the 20th century, everybody used to refer to us as isolationists, where we kept to ourselves and we tried to stay out of international politics as much as possible. And today, when people talk about that, they talk down on it like it's just horrible and it's something that's wrong, and they don't understand that was how our government was. That's how our government was founded. We we had conservatism, don't get me wrong, but that's not what created the the country that we live in today. It wasn't, our country wasn't founded on these conservative ideas. Um, now, um, the interventionalism is also uh, another issue where um, there's a fine line between conservatism and national socialism. You know what I mean? And this is one of the issues where you want to get involved with outside issues that don't pertain to your country. You know, um, so that's another thing that I thought was interesting that needed to be brought up with conservatism. Now, especially when it comes to interventionism. That's a big deal. And today, like even in the United States, it seems like conservatives take pride in the fact that they have a strong armed force. Um, whereas back whenever um, back whenever our country first started, George Washington actually stepped down as freaking as commander in chief. Um, and that was profound back then because even the King of England responded to that and said that he had a lot of admiration for George Washington for doing that. So not only did George Washington choose not to be a part of a political party, but he also stepped down as commander in chief, which was pretty amazing because I didn't know until that point that a president had the right to step down as commander in chief and still be president of the United States. But I guess it's true, you know, and that was a big deal back then, and he was our first president. Okay, so you have to understand right there the difference between conservatism at the time and liberalism at the time. So, but now we look at the way people are here in the United States and the way they talk about, you know, strong armed force. Well, you know, when you have, you know, enemies at the gates basically, and you've got countries which we do have that would love to see us fall, yeah, you're going to have a strong armed force. But you also have to understand that there's a lot of conservatism that's going into that. That it's not just about a good defense against invaders and stuff of that nature. Now, conservatism, you have to understand, was formed as the interpretation of the Tories. Okay, and that was changed in support of social reform and the idea of free trade. So that's where conservatism came from. Now the Tories didn't agree with free trade at all. They also were strong supporters of the monarchy, and what happened was is the Whigs came into power, and the Whigs actually reinterpreted a lot of the Tory beliefs and created something that incorporated free trade and social reform into their ideas. So the Whigs eventually merged with the radicals, and they became what is known as the liberals after it was all said and done. So with all of that, you know, I mentioned it here recently where I was looking at all this stuff and I was learning about it, and it just dawned on me, you know, that socialism wasn't just something that was created by this person or that person. It was, and Bob Dub found it interesting, and it's probably because she's into anarchy and stuff, but I called it like an evolutionary step. You know what I mean? It seems from looking at the evidence in history that it was the only obvious, um, only obvious next step. You know what I mean? That it was inevitable for socialism to come. And the reason for that is when you look through all this stuff and you see what they're talking about conservatives are talking about reforms, and they're talking about freaking strong-armed forces and interventionism and interpretations of the law and things of that nature. Um, so this was all going on, and it was just culminating and getting bigger and bigger and bigger until eventually that's what we ended up with. We ended up with stuff like social reform, and stuff of that nature. So that was one of the few things that did stick out to me when I was reading this stuff. So traditionalists, which conservatives, they usually value, social ties, and they also believe in ancestral institutions, and they, they don't really like um, individualism. They just don't like it whatsoever, especially excessive individualism. A lot of people think that conservatists are for the people, by the people, and that's not the case. Okay, conservatism is against individual rights. They're against excessive individual rights, which today that's what you would call the Civil Rights Act. It's these woke people wanting all this stuff and that stuff. That's what conservatives are against, and they've always been against these kind of things. This isn't something that's new, that's just made up or anything of that nature. Okay, these people have always been against that kind of ideology. So those are things that you have to understand, and this goes all the way back to the beginning. All right, they had a problem with free trade until the Tories actually, or no, the Whigs actually emerged out of the Tory party in the UK. So that's when the conservatives started thinking about free trade, and eventually they merged into their Liberal Party there in the UK. So again, it goes back to the Liberals, or classical Liberal at least. And I told Jaffe to be careful about that, and I'll tell you guys too, when you're talking about this stuff, make sure to mention classical liberalism, because if you don't, you'll have people that will just completely go off the chain. They'll start relating it to all this stuff that's going on today, and they don't understand concepts like John Locke or the Constitution, especially when you tell them that the Constitution was created out of liberal ideology. They just completely flip out because they're thinking of liberalism today and not liberalism back then. And this all goes back to what I was talking about too. Most Americans today believe that our country was founded on conservative ideas, and they weren't. They were not formed out of that. Now, yes, we did have a lot of connections with conservatism with some of the people who were founders, but the general idea of our country is based on classic liberalism, not conservatism. So now that I've covered all of that, I can move on. Now, social ties, you know what I mean? Like, conservatives are all about social ties, and they also believe in ancestral institutions, which that's the reason why England went back to a monarchy after two revolutions for their freedom. It's because their conservative ideas and believing that they had to have a king were just so entrenched into their being that they decided that they wanted a king back. They didn't want to have what we have here in the United States, or most constitutional governments have. They needed that king to make them feel warm inside, warm and cuddly, and all feeling great, you know. So, even though they do have a parliament and they have the House of Commons and the House of the Upper House, whatever the hell that is, the House of Lords, that's still not a constitutional government. They are still a monarchy, okay? And me and Mark argue about, well, we don't really argue about that. He tries to say that I'm wrong, and I know that he's wrong, so that's basically how it works. But you see, England isn't set up as it's set up as a parliamentary government, but it's still got a monarchy. It still has a monarchy as a government with a parliamental government attached to it. Now, that is one thing about the ancestral institutions. And, you know, I've also mentioned on Roger's Real-Time Talk Show, too, about when it comes to conservatism, I do believe in the organic growth of the community and its government and everything, but there is a limit there, too. You know what I mean? I do agree with that part of conservatism, but I also know that there's a limit, because out of that kind of thought, it justifies, you know, hierarchical societies where you have the peasant, you have the tradesmen, you have the dukes and the earls, and then you have the king and the queen. It also justifies warlords in third world countries who keep their children addicted to freaking drugs and starving so that they can get them to do what they want to do, you know. So you have to kind of take that with a grain of salt, you know what I mean? Like, it's good if a community can do that organically, but I think that there's a point where you have to say, hold on, it's just that's not a good idea, you know. So I do, to some extent, believe in ancestral institutions. I'm not one of those guys who believe in what a lot of people here do, where, like, over in England, it's all about the king and the queen and the royalty and all that. But here in the United States, it's institutions and ideas that think that the American flag is just so important. You know what I mean? I gotta get up and I gotta freaking salute the American flag because I'm a citizen of the United States, you know, and I've got to be patriotic and you know, memorize the Pledge of Allegiance and all that stuff. I'm not one of those people. I don't think that is what the founding fathers here in the United States intended it for us to do. These things that we call tradition only started within the early 1900s, you know, and for some reason, people here in the United States thinks that they've been going on since the beginning of the country, you know, like every day kids in school got up and they went to school and they said the Pledge of Allegiance and stood in front of the American flag every day at the beginning of school, and that's not the case. You know, you saw that on Little House on the Prairie. That Little House on the Prairie was made on television back in the 1970s, 1980s, somewhere like that. So that wasn't taking place during that time period, you know, kind of. And I think that that's what we have a hard time with. We have a hard time with putting ourselves in that time period and seeing things from their point of view. We always want to relate what happened back then to our way of life today and the things that are going on in our life, you know. So I think that's a part of the changing our thinking and the way we see things, and kind of see things for what they really are instead of the way we want to perceive them. Now, excessive individualism, I believe that that has to do with the radicals. Now, with the conservatives, like I said, they believed in leadership, authority, hierarchy, and they believed that they are seen as natural to humans. And these conservatives, uh, or conservatism itself, it was a response to the Enlightenment. You know what I mean? And also with the English and the French revolutions, that was their response to it. So they started out as Tories, then Whigs, and then the Whigs ended up eventually merging together with the radicals and creating what is known as the Liberals in England. So that's basically how it ended up happening. And this was the conservative part of it was all a response to the Age of Enlightenment, um, English, and French Revolution. So these things, for one effect, there's cause and effect basically. So you got to understand that and take that into place, into consideration. Now, now with Edmund Burke. Now Edmund Burke, he actually was fundamental when it comes to the creation of the Conservative Party in England. It's I'd also like to mention Edmund Burke because of his legacy, and the reason why I wanted to mention him and the legacy that he left it behind is because here in the United States, like I said, we do have conservatism. Okay, now, and we did have conservatism back then, but it was best represented in the United States by the Federalist Party and its leaders. Now, there were past presidents that were a part of the Federalists, and they also had strong connections with Edmund Burke's ideologies, and that was John Adams. And then there was the Secretary of Treasury, Alexander Hamilton, who I believe was also a president. So you had these two people who believed in classic conservatism, and I really don't like Alexander Hamilton. I mean, I'll just tell you right now, I don't. He's the one who ended up creating or fighting for a state bank, a state banking system here in the United States, where the rest of the people who were founding fathers, they didn't agree with it, but he fought for it, and he fought for it, and eventually that is what we ended up with. We ended up with the Federal Reserve, which really isn't a state bank, which to let you know, I mean, if we had a state bank, it would be illegal, constitutionally illegal here in the United States. So what they did is they created a loophole, and with that loophole, they created the Federal Reserve. Okay, now the Federal Reserve isn't a government office; it's a non-governmental office. This was done so that they could bypass constitutional law and be able to create basically like a state bank, the way they do it over in Europe. And Hamilton was the result of all this. He was really big on traveling to Europe and learning all these cool new banking ideas for being the Secretary of Treasury, and he just kept pushing it, and it's been that way ever since. So this is all from the get-go. This is from the time the United States was first formed. You know, you had all of these ideas and these different backgrounds that were clashing with one another. I mentioned the Anti-Federalists with George Mason. You know, George Mason and George Washington were best friends. They grew up together all their life as children, all the way up to an adult. And the story about the Constitutional Convention is pretty amazing if you actually hear the real story, because the way the Constitutional Convention first, the way it actually happened was like this. The Articles of Confederation that we first had before the Constitution was failing. The southern states were considering going back to the British, and the British were actually influencing the Indians in Georgia to create problems for the citizens in Georgia in that area. And it got to the point where they were getting ready to leave. So what happened is these representatives from all of the states, I guess, back then, they came together. Not only did they come together in secrecy. Okay, in other words, nobody knew that this was taking place. So they just decided that they were going to do a secret meeting without anybody's knowledge that it was taking place. A meeting that was going to change our history, and it was going to affect every single person in the United States. They decided they were going to do it in secrecy. So they come together in secrecy, and they sit there and they draw up the Constitution during this Constitutional Convention. And they thought everything was hunky-dory and that everybody was just going to sign this paper and it was just going to be law. Well, George Mason and the Anti-Federalists who were there in the Constitutional Convention were reading this Constitution, and there were things that were left out that they didn't agree with. Okay, there were things that they weren't, that the individual wasn't being protected from. Okay, like we have rights now that's in the Bill of Rights that can protect us from people taking away our weapons, people that freaking have the right to come in and just move right into our house because they're a part of the government. You know, the military can't just come in and take possession of your house. You know what I mean? Things like that. So this is the stuff that's missing out of the Constitution, and in my personal opinion, I believe that this stuff was left out on purpose. And the reason for that was because these were people who were more, or who were influenced more by classical traditional conservatism than what they were classical liberalism. Now, what happened is George Mason and these Anti-Federalists brought this up, and the people who wanted them to sign said that they didn't agree with these writing up Bill of Rights, because as the Federalists say it, the Bill of Rights was just basically something that kings and queens wrote up for their peasants, giving them the rights that they deserve, and that was their way of saying it. And it protected them abroad, things of that nature. But the Anti-Federalists didn't see it that way. They felt that they needed this Bill of Rights so that they would be protected, their individual rights would be protected. Well, it wasn't working out, and these Anti-Federalists stood up and they walked out of the convention. And it took a while for them to actually recover from that. They had to go through negotiations until finally the Anti-Federalists were willing to sit back down and negotiate, you know. So that is basically what happened. And because of that, George Mason and George Washington's friendship was lost. They never spoke to one another again all throughout their lives. Childhood friendship that was lost because of different viewpoints. And this is at the beginning. This wasn't today, 2024. This was back whenever our country was first founded. So that, I hope that actually made sense, and that kind of helps with. I don't really know how that would help. I know that it was a story that needs to be told so that people understand that today isn't very much different than what it was back then. Okay, and just so you know, the Bill of Rights didn't go into effect until well over 10, 15 years, maybe a little bit longer, after the Constitution was put in effect and the new government was implemented. It caused a lot of problems too, which eventually led up to the War of 1812, and that was because these Federalists decided that they didn't want the Bill of Rights to be enacted and put into law, and they did whatever they could to prevent it from happening. That's conservatism, okay? So that you guys understand that's conservatism. That's not classical liberalism, all right? Now, liberalism, with that, we have to go back and discuss John Locke's ideology. And his ideology of classical liberalism was rooted in advocating for the rights and liberties of the common man against the absolute rule of monarchy. Okay? And that's what he was against. Okay? And he also believed that the idea of government should be by the consent of the governed. All right? And the natural rights of life, liberty, and property. Now, he said property. And the other day, Jeffy, I was on his show, and he's like, "Oh, I stand corrected. I'm glad you said this." But I kind of dissuaded him because I don't want him to, I didn't want him to say it, because first of all, it's his show. You know what I mean? He was alright with that, and I didn't want to make it seem like I had done that, because that's not what I meant that to be for. But I dissuaded him and got him off the topic before he could say all that stuff, because, like I said, that's his show. Just like this is my show now, and I can talk about this stuff in my own words and stuff, and I enjoyed going on his show, and I was cool with what he had said, because for one thing right here, I want to go over this like with John Locke, because I want Jeffy to understand if he ever does watch this, okay? John Locke said life, liberty, and property. And that did echo across the ocean and inspired the founding fathers of this nation, the United States, which eventually became the Constitution of the United States. All right. Now, the thing is that is John Locke. That's the United States. That's the Constitution. But then you have to also take into consideration the Whigs over in the UK. Now, between the 1680s and the 1850s, the Whigs contested power with their rivals of the time, and those were the Tories. Okay, they eventually became the Liberal Party when the Whigs merged with the Peelites. Okay, and radicals, and that was in the 1850s, I believe. Now, the Peelites in the UK supported free trade, while the bulk of the Conservative Party remained protectionists. Now, protectionists are sometimes referred to as trade protectionists, and the the whole thing, the policy that they have, it involves restricting imports from other countries through methods like tariffs and yeah, like tariffs on goods and import quotas and various other government regulations. And right there, we come back to the term regulations, reform regulations, stuff like that. So this is what conservatives believe in. They believe in regulations, reforms, things of that nature, especially the Tories. But then the Whigs started changing, and eventually they created the Liberals, I believe. Yeah, the Liberals in the UK, which were pretty much, well, it's pretty strange how it all worked out. Which they were basically against methods like tariffs on imported goods and stuff like that, and protectionism. Now, during the 19th century, liberalism began to emphasize individual freedoms. Now, this is in England. Now that they begin to emphasize individual freedoms, equality, democratic governance, and they were rooted in the Enlightenment ideas of liberty, equality, and fraternity. So right there, you're hearing liberty, equality, and fraternity. They advocated constitutional government and the protection of individual rights against arbitrary authority. Okay, so right there, you're starting to hear a difference between the United States idea of what liberalism is compared to what the British idea of what liberalism is. So, and if you notice, with everything that's going on with England, they don't talk about property. All right, and I had a conversation with Bob Dubb and Mark Edworthy in our last episode of Roger's Real Time Talk Show about property, and do you actually own property in England or New Zealand? And they didn't know at the time, but I believe what they did know was that you owned what was on top of the property. You didn't own the property itself. And then I remembered hearing something about Israel and how they did the same thing with their property. Like, you don't own the land, you own what's on top of it. But I also heard that when a person dies, the state can take that back as their property once again if the family members don't keep it. Now, that is what I believe is going on in England and in New Zealand. Whereas here in the United States, when we buy our property, that property is ours. Now, I have an issue with the taxation that goes into private property. I don't think that it's right that we should be taxed for the property that we buy, and the threat of losing it to the government because we don't pay our taxes is there. You know what I mean? Private property and owning property is a constitutional right that we've been given. I do have my issues about that. I think that is something that really needs to be discussed. These laws have just gotten so out of hand when it comes to that stuff, and we've just allowed it to take place. And I do believe that it's not good, and it's getting worse. Now, the thing that I also notice is like individual rights. You know what I mean? I believe that's the one thing I do believe. I believe in the individual's rights. I don't care about the greater good. I don't care about what I should be expected to do for my nation, or or helping out my fellow man, much less, you know what I'm saying? It's about my individual rights, your individual rights, Joe Blow's individual rights right down the street. What each person has as their own rights. This is your rights. This is what belongs to you. I think that's important. Not the fact that I should worry about the greater good in order to freaking think of something better. Well, whose place is it to determine what the greater good is? Okay? That's my question. Who determines what the greater good is? Should I sacrifice myself for the greater good? You know, and I believe that's something that we've all been suckered into believing, and I don't think that is a good thing. I think that is a bad thing, and we've been snookered into believing that way and have that way of thinking by these governments that are trying to pull us away from constitutional, libertarian, classical libertarian ideas and draw us either towards the conservative way of believing or the radicals way of believing, but not the constitutional, classical, liberalist way of thought, if that makes sense. Now, for me personally, I believe that there's a fine line between conservative and nationalism, conservatism and nationalism. Now, the main reason why I believe that is because of protectionists and their viewpoint about trade. Now, protectionism involves tariffs, okay, which raise the cost of imported goods. For both countries, the person that is putting the tariffs in and the people that they're setting the tariffs against. The prices go up no matter what, okay? It increases the price or the cost for the imported goods. Now, this also raises the cost of or the price for the consumer, for me and you. When we go down and we actually buy the stuff, the price goes up because there's these tariffs that are being put against them. All right. Now, conservatives, they believe that this is a good thing, that this is what's needed in order to protect us from, other countries taking advantage of us and blah blah blah. But it also, what this does is it creates government revenue. Okay, so in reality, they're saying that it's protecting us from being taken advantage of by these other countries, but in truth, what's really going on is they're freaking creating revenue for the government because of these tariffs. Okay, this is only good for the government. So, for me, these countries and the policies that the protectionists generally are held by countries with national socialist policies. Okay, and they're disguising themselves as conservative when in reality it's actually national socialist. And you see that I see it at least where the conservative parties are being overran by the National Socialists, and these people honestly believe that these are conservative ideas when in reality they aren't. They're actually National Socialist ideas. When you start hearing people talk about borders and immigration and frickin' tariffs and social, and that all they're doing is they're talking about government and government revenue. They're talking about revenue and things of that nature, and it's not about conservatism. It has there's absolutely nothing that I have found in any conservative writings that concern immigration at all whatsoever. The only place where immigration is ever mentioned was during the time just before World War II, when shit hit the fan with Czechoslovakia setting up blocks against Germany, and they were in the process of having socialists, National Socialists especially, who were attacking. They were attacking pan-Slavic belief systems and saying that these ideas that these people had for hundreds and thousands of years were wrong, and they were doing that to raise controversy and discourse and division, and the reason why they were doing that was because they wanted to start implementing socialist reform into those areas, and that is what that was about with pan-Slavic ideologies. And then they started going on to different areas where they were talking about, if you don't speak our language, then you either need to learn our language or go back to where you came from. Does that sound familiar? It's happening all the time here, especially here in the United States. So you have that going on, and all of these are socialist ideologies that were being put in place so that these people could create a hateful environment towards other people in order to propagate their agenda, which was National Socialist ideologies. So, and that's what's going on today, which, like I said, I have yet read anything that is traditional conservatism that even speaks about immigration whatsoever. Now, they do have concerns with their traditions and their culture and things of that being affected, you know what I mean, because of people coming in and excessive, amounts of people coming in and changing their traditions and stuff of that nature. That is a conservative issue, don't get me wrong on that, but they don't start writing about immigration laws and shit like that. That just never happened. So I just wanted to put that out. Now, the Great Britain, in Great Britain, the Liberal Party emerged from the Whig Party and pushed for major reforms, which included the abolition of slave trade in 1807 and slavery itself in 1833. Then they went on with the Reform Acts of 1832, 1867, and 1884 into 1885. This allowed more people to vote in Britain as well. Now, classical liberalism promoted free trade and smaller government intervention in the economy as well. Now, that's something that I also think that people should become more aware of. Okay, like, that's what our country was built on. It was built on the idea of small government intervention, small government intervention when it comes to the economy. Okay, free trade. There should not be huge organizations monitoring our economy and how it should be done. It should be small when it comes to government intervention. Now we've got things like the FCC, we've got the IRS, which, by the way, is a non-governmental organization as well. It's illegal according to the Constitution of the United States, and they continue to call it voluntary tax system, which, by the way, if you think that it's voluntary tax, it's a voluntary tax system, then you're just a shill, dude. Sorry. I joke around about it. I do it all the time. I'm like, man, it's a voluntary tax system. You don't have to pay. No, don't worry about it. You know, I do that all the time, but I'm just being sarcastic just to make that clear because I've said that to a few people. Um, but trust me, you don't have to pay. You don't have to pay those taxes at all. But the consequences that come after that's another story altogether. You know, so I mean, but you don't have to. And what they're saying about voluntary taxes is this: like back in the day, man, the tax man went door to door. He knocked on your door, and if you didn't answer, he knocked your door open, and he walked inside, and he forced you to pay your taxes. You see, so voluntary tax systems means that you voluntarily get up and you go down and you pay your taxes. That's what they're meaning by that. They no longer kick your door in and demand it from you. Not unless, of course, you are behind and your papers are in arrear. In that case, you will have guys with guns and shields and bayonets kicking your door in and confiscating everything. The next thing you know, your freaking soda dispenser will be at the nearest police department, and the cops will be drinking freaking snow. What do they call those? Those snow globe machines. Those flavored freaking drinks. You know, because they confiscated your shit, and now they're doing it. You know, there's stories of police stations out in the middle of Arizona that have scuba diving equipment. You know what I mean? Like, not even a lake within 150 miles to 250 miles, but these guys have scuba diving equipment. You know what I mean? And the reason why they got it was because this stuff was confiscated from people because they didn't pay their taxes. So you got a lot of crazy stuff going on there. So that's that is something that I wanted to bring up about this smaller government intervention in the economy, and then like the IRS and the things that the IRS are doing. We've already discussed the Federal Reserves. People just accept it though. You know what I mean? It's just important. You know, we have them going and just setting up these organizations which are just huge. They're very powerful, and they are illegal, constitutionally illegal, but we just allow them and we turn a blind eye to them. So now like I said, you know, classical liberalism, it promotes free trade and smaller government intervention. All right. Now, National Socialism, it also intersects with classical liberalism as well, believe it or not. National Socialism in Italy and Germany, their ideas, their liberal ideals supported unification efforts, which led to the creation of nation states. These nation states also had constitutional governments. Now, that is a form of National Socialism right there, okay? And that is from Italy and Germany. So, they do have liberal ideas, but they also created what they called nation states with constitutional governments. So, that kind of gets through a lot of the stuff about liberalism. Now, radicalism is something that is new to me, and I'm still working it out. It's still got a lot of things that I need to find out about, but I have found out some pretty interesting stuff about it. Now, radicalism is it can be confused with classical liberalism, but they're not the same. They're very different from one another. Radicalism believes in a lot of the ideas um, when it comes to liberalism or classical liberalism. All right, but it doesn't promote smaller government, and it does promote free trade, I believe, but it doesn't believe in smaller government, and it's actually the opposite. Um, the radicals, when they first started out, they were a loose parliament or a parliamentary political group um, who they basically drew on their earlier ideas of radicalism. They helped to transform the Whigs into the English Liberal Party. Now, the radicals supported parliamentary reform, which that's what I was talking about, and they believed in a lot of excessive reforms. I mean, and earlier I was talking about the conservatives, okay, and what they were against. They were against excessive um, radicalism or radical ideas, radical reforms, and this is what they're talking about. They supported parliamentary reform with additional aims of including lower taxes and the abolition of censures. Okay, they were the ones who probably, from the way I'm reading it, influenced and inspired socialism in the UK. They were big on the working class and middle class. You had the popular radicals, which agitated to they agitated and they demanded the right to vote, and they asserted other rights, including like the freedom of the press and relief from economic distress. Then you had the philosophical radicals, who strongly supported parliamentary reform as well, but they were generally hostile towards the arguments and the tactics of the popular radicals. So you had the philosophical radicals, and then you had the popular radicals. So you had two factions within that group. All right. Now, a lot of in my beliefs, I've already said that I believe that the National Socialists have overran the Conservative Party. But if you take a look at it, you can also see where, even though the Radicals and the Whigs were part of creating the Liberal Party into England, I would go even farther as to say that the Radicals eventually overtook the Liberal Party. And later on, I know that the Liberal Party also converged with the Socialists or the Labour Party in the United Kingdom. So eventually, they did become a part of the Labour Party, which is now the Socialist Party within the UK. From what I've read, I mean, I could be wrong, and most likely Mark Edward, he'll hear this and he'll go, "Oh, poppycock," but that's just my take on it. Now, with that, I want to mention a few characters who were radicals. Now, John Wilkes, his reformist efforts in the 1760s as editor of the North Briton and as the MP were seen as radical at the time, but support dropped away from him after the massacre of St. George's Field in 1768. Now, John Wilkes was a prominent English radical journalist and politician known for his outspoken criticisms of the government and advocacy for civil liberties. He was first elected to Parliament. He was first elected to Parliament in 1757 and became a key figure in the fight for the rights of voters over the decisions of the House of Commons. Despite being expelled from Parliament multiple times, Wilkes continued to fight for his seat and became a symbol of resistance against governmental oppression. In addition to this political, in addition to his political career, Wilkes was known for his libertine lifestyle in association with the Hellfire Club. That means he was a pervert. Okay, just so you guys know. If you don't know anything about the Hellfire Club, I'll let you know here in a little bit. But they were a group of a group infamous for their debauchery. All right, basically. He also played a significant role in securing the right to publish parliamentary debates, contributing to greater transparency in government. Now, like right here with the radicals, you hear the word transparency, and in today's world, that's all you ever hear is transparency this, transparency that, transparency this. This is the group where all of that came from. When you hear that stuff being said over and over again, you're hearing it coming from a radical movement that is taking place as we speak. Okay, so just understand that. And it really is about the terminology if you're paying attention. Okay, it's all about the words. The government uses words in order to manipulate and get what they want, and you need to understand that, because like governments don't speak the same language as the common man does, and that's been that way for a long time. So just understand that. Now, Wilkes' legacy includes his early efforts towards parliamentary reforms and his support for the American colonies during their struggle for independence. However, his later years saw a shift towards more conservative policies, which alienated some of his radical supporters. And see, I have also heard the same being said about Karl Marx too. Like, Karl Marx was very proactive, I guess you could say. There's one of those words, but as a Marxist when he was younger, but later on when he got older, he ended up being one of those dudes that sit at a coffee shop talking intellectually about the economy, so I thought that was interesting. This is actually the second time I've heard somebody change their viewpoints and stuff, so now, the massacre of St. George Fields occurred on May the 10th, 1768, in Southwark, London. This tragic event unfolded when government soldiers opened fire on a crowd of demonstrators protesting the imprisonment of John Wilkes, a radical member of Parliament. John Wilkes was known for his outspoken criticism of King George III, which led to his arrest and imprisonment. His supporters gathered at St. George Fields to demand his release. When the crowd refused to disperse after the riot act was read, soldiers, primarily from a Scottish regiment, fired into the crowd, resulting in the deaths of 6 or 7 people and injuring around 15 others. This incident not only highlighted the tensions between the government and its critics, but it also contributed to the enduring phrase, reading the riot act, which means to give a stern warning or reprimand. Now, another character that I do want to mention is Henry Orator. Henry Orator Hunt is what he goes by. Now, he was the main speaker at the Manchester meeting in 1890 that ended in the Peterloo massacre. Hunt was elected MP for the Preston division in 1830 to 1832. the root and branch of the reforms which the adjacent radical suggests. Wait a minute. The root and branch of the reforms which the adjective radical suggests, and at the time still strongly in concept denoted by reference to all its previous main uses, is the British Constitution. Now, this is the British Constitution. The British Constitution is not codified or restricted to particular customs, laws, or documentations. So you have this Constitution supposedly in England that isn't codified. It's not restricted, um, and it doesn't have any particular customs, laws, or documents. So it's not held by law, you know. And this goes back to what I was saying. So when you look at England, you have to understand that it's a monarchy. Okay, people of England and the UK in the colonies, you've all been hoodwinked into believing that you're a part of this constitutional parliamentary government, when in fact you're not. Okay, Canada just now got a constitution with in 1982. So the whole time that they've been up there, separated from the United States, they not once had a freaking constitution until 1982. And these are things that I didn't even know until I started doing this stuff with Mark and Bob Dub and Otto and researching this stuff. It's amazing when you look at this stuff. It's crazy. So the Peterloo massacre occurred on August the 16th, 1890 at St. Peter's Field in Manchester, England. It was a significant and tragic event in British history, where a peaceful rally of around 60,000 people demanded parliamentary reform turned deadly. The rally was organized by the Manchester Patriotic Union and featured prominent radical speaker Henry Hunt. The crowd, which included many women and children, gathered to protest the lack of representation in Parliament and the harsh economic conditions following the Napoleonic Wars. Local magistrates, fearing the large and enthusiastic crowd, ordered the Manchester and Salford Yeomanry to arrest Hunt and his and other leaders. The Yeomanry, along with the 15th Hussars, charged into the crowd with sabers drawn, resulting in chaos and bloodshed. Estimates of the casualties vary, but it's believed that 18 people were killed and between 400 and 700 were injured. The event was dubbed the Peterloo Massacre in a bitter reference to the Battle of Waterloo, highlighting the irony of soldiers attacking their own people. The massacre had a profound impact on public opinion and led to increased support for the reform movement, eventually contributing to the passage of the Reform Act of 1832. So I did want to make a note of the Hellfire Club. Now, the Hellfire Club refers to several exclusive clubs for high society individuals in Britain and Ireland during the 18th century. The most notorious of these was founded by Sir Francis Dashwood, known as the Order of the Friars of St. Francis of Wycombe. These clubs were infamous for their hedonistic and often blasphemous activities. Members who included prominent figures like John Wilkes and even Benjamin Franklin would engage in elaborate rituals, mock religious ceremonies, and indulge in various forms of debauchery. The meetings were often held in secluded locations, such as Dashwood's estate at West Wycombe, which featured a network of caves used for their gatherings. The Hellfire Club's activities were shrouded in secrecy, leading to much speculation and myth, while some accounts suggest that the club's antics were more about shocking society than genuine devil worship. The combination of secrecy and scandal ensured its lasting notoriety. So Ben Franklin, he was a pervert. He was a pervert just like John Wilkes. What do you guys think about that? Running around naked, having sex with women. You know what hedonistic behaviors are, don't you? They've got resorts now for that, where you can go to resorts and just act like a fool. So that was Ben Franklin, the old pervert. All right, so here's another note I thought that was mentionable. Radicalism in England played a significant role in laying the groundwork for socialism in the United Kingdom, but it wasn't the sole cause. The development of socialism in the UK was influenced by a variety of factors and movements over time. Radicalism in the 19th century, which included movements like the Chartists and the Manchester Patriotic Union, focused on political reform such as universal suffrage, fair representation, and workers' rights. Now, right there tells you point blank that has to do with socialism. You know what I'm saying? And the Patriotic Union is something that I became interested in here recently, and if anybody knows any history on that, I would appreciate any feedback that you guys have, because this is some of the stuff that I need to get into so that I can do a deeper dig on what the radicals were during this time period and before. So just wanted to put that out there. Now, these movements highlighted the inequalities and injustices faced by the working class, creating a fertile ground for socialist ideas to take root. Socialism in the UK evolved. Now, see, this is where Bob Dub probably wanted to go from when I mentioned the word evolved, okay? Now, socialism in the UK evolved from these radical roots, but it was also shaped by other influences, including the ideas of early socialists like Robert Owens and the impact of Marxist theory. The economic and social changes brought about by the Industrial Revolution further fueled the growth of socialist thought, as workers sought better conditions and more equitable distribution of wealth. Now, with socialism, that's another thing I've been hearing here lately, and it goes all the way back into the writings, equitable and equity. You know, when you start hearing words like equity, you're hearing socialists. And you'll hear it more and more. It's amazing some of the places where I've heard people talking about that and bringing it up. You know, there's a charity that's supposed to be helping handicapped people, and one of the girls that are on there, she's real short, you know, and she's got a handicap, and you're sitting there listening to her, and it's good that she's on there. She's promoting, you know, people helping out people with disabilities and stuff like that. But then at the end, she starts talking about equity, and I'm like, dude, you don't bring equity up when you're talking about helping people with handicaps, with donations and stuff. And they do that stuff. They'll start throwing that kind of language in there, and they just think you're stupid and you don't understand what that means. But in reality, people understand that stuff, and that's the one thing that everybody who is doing this stuff needs to understand. That those things are very you just know what's being said there. Don't get me wrong when it comes to workers and the history of the workers and the things that they had to do. They had miners working who were doing tedious jobs and losing body parts and things of that nature, which I do not approve of. I don't think that that's a good thing. But at the same time, I've actually read a lot of this stuff when it comes to socialism, and it has very little to do with the individual. It has more to do with unionization. It has to do with the workers. It has to do with the group. It doesn't have to do anything to do with you as an individual or me as an individual. These beginnings may have been, a part of that when it comes to, having a better working class and, safer working environments and things of that nature. But not in today's world, and it's like I said, a lot of this stuff has to do with what I was talking about earlier, where we need to change our thinking, because this stuff is rooted deep into our way of thinking today. This is the way we have been raised up. This is the stuff that we believe in, and it's just not right. It's not true. We need to learn how to change our way of thinking, and that is something that I have been always wanting to tell people. It's easy to freaking, say that you want to do this or you want to do that, but when it comes to doing it, you've actually got to think about it. You got to be like, okay, what is the best logical way of doing that? It's easy to say that we need change, but how do we change? Starting over from scratch, I don't agree with it, but I do believe that there are things that have been done in the past that are important to us. I believe that the individual is more important than the many. You know what I mean? I don't believe that I should give up my rights for somebody else, whereas they shouldn't give up their rights for me. That's respect. That's respecting other people, respecting myself. Conservatism, I think we need to reevaluate. We need to stop thinking that conservatism is what it really isn't. You know what I mean? Today, like, this whole concept of conservatism is like it's like a mush mixed in with liberalism, classic liberalism, radicalism, nationalism, and it's just a pool. It's a cesspool of dirty shit. You know what I mean? That's my best way of saying it. And now, out of that, we've got politicians who are senile. We got 20-year-old freaking children trying to assassinate the president with mental disabilities, because instead of blaming mental disabilities, we blame the gun. And I think that that is something that also needs to be taken into consideration. I get on here and I deal with a lot of people on here who have a lot of issues going on with themselves, that involve mental illness. And I love each and every one of them, but I also have to be careful with them because I know that I could say something or I could do something that would cause something to hurt them or people around them, because these are real situations. Um, I don't get on here to try to hurt people. You know what I mean? I don't get on here to try to give people advice. You know what I mean? If you're coming on here and wanting me to give you medical advice, you're an idiot. If you've listened to me once, you know that's a stupid idea. So don't be trying to get mental health off this dude, because I I've had my fair share of hard times too. I've walked the walk. I'm a recovering alcoholic and drug addict. I've been sober since 2003, June 14th, 2003. I've been through the programs. I know about Alcoholics Anonymous, NA Anonymous, or NA, AA. I can't believe I just said NA Anonymous. But NA, CA, done it all, read the books. But I'm going to tell you right now, when it's all said and done, and you're looking back at it all, you start realizing it's not just about staying sober and doing the next right thing. It's about getting through this life without having guilt and shame. If you're doing something right now that doesn't feel good and it's not a good thing, then you're the one who's going to have to stop it, basically, is what I'm saying. Alright? And you don't have to tell me if you're feeling that way or if you're not. If you're honestly feeling good about getting on the internet and berating other people because of what they believe or what they don't believe, then that means you don't have a conscience. Alright? Now, me personally, I went down that road whenever I started messing around with politics, which was, I'd say, roughly 2 years before Donald Trump's first nomination when he became president. And I got really interested in politics back then. But what ended up happening is things started taking a change for the worse. People started getting hateful, and the environment just become really, really unhealthy. You had a lot of people talking hate, and they still do it today. It's just awful hate towards one another, and it's not just one side or the other, it's both sides doing it. And this is where I'm talking about. If you honestly believe that stuff is good, then you don't have a conscience. But if you if you honestly can feel it inside that you are doing wrong, then you just need to stop doing it. Don't participate. You don't have to be a part of that conversation. I'm talking about politics right now. I'm talking about political history, and I'm not bad-mouthing anybody. I'm contributing in my own way. And for me personally, I feel bad for what happened to Donald Trump, and just all I can say is I'm glad that it was just a flesh wound, because I don't think our country could take another assassination attempt. Also, this whole thing with Biden and that debate beforehand, I've had my theories about that too, but when it comes to that debate, that was, like I said, it was pretty pathetic. I felt sorry for the guy, and I honestly, like I said, I don't think Trump even wanted to be there. It was that bad. So um, it's pretty cool. I've been on here for 2 hours and 15 minutes. I said I was going to do my best to get you guys a good show. I went from 10 o'clock my time until 12:20 almost. So we we did good. Now the reason why I'm doing this to where I'm setting it off on my own is because there's some issues that I need to deal with. First of all, I do want to start making streams where it just pertains to me so that I can give my point of view. If you guys want to be a part of the conversation, you can participate in the chats. Um, if you don't want to be a part of the conversation, you don't have to be. I understand that and I respect you for that. But I am I'm having to deal with a lot of people, and these people have a lot of ideas, and a lot of them aren't really, you know, too straight. A lot of these ideas can get you banned from platforms. That's how radical they are. So I I'm tired of getting on shows and listening to other people, or getting on my own shows and listening to other people, and then when I make a comment, they are so into themselves and what they think that they don't even hear what I'm saying, and in their minds they think that I agree with them. You know what I mean? So later on down the road, all of a sudden we're having a conversation and it's like, hey man, you didn't say. I was like, yes, I did say that. I don't agree with you. I never did agree. But in their minds, they think that I'm 100% behind them on it, which isn't true. You know. But this gives me a chance to kind of let everybody know this is me. This is the way I feel about stuff and things of that nature. Now, Do Better actually left me a comment in the stream. I want to thank you, Do Better. And he says, common common good and individual rights coincide with each other and are based on morality, which isn't taught and needs to be. I agree with that. I also believe in moral psychology as well. That's the thing that I think really hits home right there. That's what they call the same thing that I had to learn earlier on in the 12-step programs that I mentioned before. I had to learn moral psychology. I had to learn how to stop being in constant denial and admit the truth to myself and to the people around me, because see, a lot of people, and I've had this conversation, this goes back to having these conversations with people, and them believing that I agreed with them when in reality I didn't. Now, this goes back to them, alright? Now, there's people that I've had conversations with over and over and over again who honestly don't believe that they have a subconscious. They don't believe that they lie to themselves. They don't believe that they're constantly lying to themselves, and they have to remind themselves that freaking, even though they believe this, it's wrong. That, that they don't believe that they're doing that stuff. They believe that their way is the right way, and that's all there is to it. When in reality, that's being closed-minded. Being open-minded, willing to freaking change, being honest to yourself and to other people. That's remaining teachable, and those are the fundamentals of morality. You have to be honest to yourself and others. You have to be open-minded, and you have to be willing to change and with those three ingredients is you remain teachable, and you're able to develop and grow. Okay, and in this world, you have to learn how to grow or you go. Just cut and dry. These are the things that I learned within the first 3 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. And there's 12 steps. You see? And all of it has to do with moral psychology. So um, that is something I do agree with you. Do good. You're a good man. Um, Now, like with the individual and everything, I like Spencer Herbert. He says, "To thy own self be true." It's something else that I agree with. I think that you have to be honest to yourself before you can be honest with anybody else. So I hope you guys enjoyed all this, and I'm glad Do Good came on. I can't believe he actually. Let me look at that. Yes, he did. Do Good Minds. Okay, do better. Wow. I knew I seen that somewhere. I just couldn't believe. Yeah, do better. But I'm glad he came on, and I appreciate it. He's already probably gone to sleep by now. But at least he'll see it in the stream after it's done. Now, within the vacuum and RT Zoomy, both like my post. Thank you within the vacuum. I appreciate that. And thanks for the 3 viewers on Rumble. I appreciate it. And I don't know if there's somebody actually on Twitch. It says 1 viewer, but that could be me, because I have this habit of having to see my streams while they're going. I don't know why. Most people don't do that, but I do. I've got to know that everything's going fine on my stream, or it'll drive me nuts. So that could be me. No comments there. And with that, I guess I could end this and say that we did good. I made it to 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I thank everybody for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night. And good night, guys.